Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Atlantian Talk. So this is one's going to be a bit different. So a few housekeeping things before. The reason why this has taken me so long to upload, because of lockdown 2 has hit, I have moved back with my parents just during lockdown 2, and I've had to. The internet here is abysmally slow. So I've tried to upload several times and it just fails because it's taking too long. And these aren't long videos, these are like half-an-hour videos as well, so I don't understand what's going on. But anyway, but then also Atlantian I hated, I despised with a passion, but now I actually like Atlantian a little bit. It'll probably grow the more I play with them, but I don't despise them anymore, which I have done beforehand. So it's going to be very much my opinions beforehand, why it's changed, how it's changed, and what my opinion is now. That's the way we're going to do things. We are going to broadly talk about 3 main subjects. We're going to talk about, if it's very echoey, it's because, again, I'm at my parents' house. They're in a lot bigger house than my confined rooms, and so it is a little bit echoey. So I do apologise. There's nothing I can do. Every room is like this. It's honestly ridiculous. Anyway, you're just going to have to deal with it this time. I'm sorry. I'll do another one later if it's that bad. We'll find out. But yes, Atlantian, I played about 10 games in each each god and Gaia, so goddess. So I've got a better idea than I did beforehand, where I refused to play Atlantian if I could avoid it. But yes, we're going to talk about 3 things. We're going to talk about civilization and economy, military, and mythology. I can't get everything in those 3 categories, so I will be putting in its nearest category rather than not its category, rather than like a random one. So don't worry, I am going to cover everything I can think of. But first of all, if you don't know who I am, hello everyone, my name is That One Dude. I cover a variety of things on YouTube, but today we're going to be talking about age mythology. If you have any thoughts, comments, or questions, please leave them down in the comments below. I will answer them as soon as I can. Because I am here to play with you and not at you, especially in these videos, because these are talking videos, and I feel like it's a little bit more, it should be a little bit more back and forth than me just playing a game, So, without any further ado, let's get into it. But please hit that subscribe button, please hit that like button if you enjoy it, if you learn something new, or if you want me to keep doing Age of Mythology content. I have all the other gods talked about up to Atlantian, so I've done Greek, Egyptian, and North, and I've also uploaded at least 1 playthrough of each god as well, so you can kind of see what it's like and get a little bit more of a grasp rather than just me saying words. I also have the Fall of the Trident campaign that will be on. That's on my channel. I'm uploading them periodically. And then I'm also going to be doing all the other tutorials. So if you do like it, please give me a like, please give me a subscribe. Comment down below any comments or questions or thoughts or anything else you want to get off your chest. We keep it fast and loose, so well, not that loose. And finally, after about 98 minutes, let's get into the Atlanteans. So I despise the Atlanteans to begin with, but they are very interesting. Very different than Greek, Egyptian, and Norse, and I feel like they need a little bit of love because they don't get that much love. So we're going to head on over to Paradise. It's not the first one I'm going to cover, it's just the first Atlantean, that's all. So the first thing you'll notice if you play a random map game is the fact you only get 1 citizen, which is these Atlanteans' version of villagers. I'm hovering over it very quickly because as soon as I hover over it, you will see your jaw might drop if you've never played Atlanteans. They cost 125 food and 25 wood and cost 3 population. So just based on those statistics, if you do weight wood and food as even, you will see that the Atlanteans, the citizens, are 3 times the cost of villagers and 3 times the population cost as villagers. And you only get 1 at the start of the map. So what's going on? Why is it that the Atlanteans are getting just fucked with villagers? Really, really low. I will say, first off, the citizens take ages to load. I'm going to hazard a guess, based on everything else, as 3 times as fast. They are slightly slower walkers than any other civilization, but they are incredibly fast builders and incredibly fast resource gatherers. They gather and build around about 3 times as fast as the Greeks. The Greeks are the standard, I think, anyway. Egyptians are lower, but they do gather very, 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 very fast. And they also don't require any drop-off sites, so they can go anywhere. So they're really, really useful with hunting and on hunting maps, because they can just kind of go around the map and they don't have to constantly build going routes. They can, as soon as they go, they can go. They're also very defensive in the sense that they can just run away without having to waste, resources, because it's already in your resource bank. It also means you can just hit those upgrades that little bit earlier, because you're not having to wait for 30 food to drop on a farm, for example, if you've done husbandry, or 35 if you've got divine blood as a Greek. It's similar to how favour generates, it's just that every resource is faster. Talking of how their favour generates, they generate their favour with their town centres. So, town centres can actually build with Atlanteans from the beginning age, from the Arctic age. So as soon as they are on the map, they can build another town centre. That's how they get favour. So obviously the more town centres you have, the faster your favour will gather. So if you are short of Atlantean, I've seen quite a few pro players, I've watched quite a few pro games of Atlanteans, and a lot of pro players as Atlantean try and get a second TC up when they're advancing to classical age. I'm not saying that everyone should try that, but maybe that's going to be a bit better. Because also citizens take ages to load and to build, it's a bit difficult. Try and play, if you aren't sure with Atlanteans, try and play a random map at 1 level less than you would normally play your strongest civilization. So, for example, say your strongest civilization is Greek and you go on Titan. Try on moderate or hard first and just see how many villages you'll make. You'll need less than you think, but if you think you need less, you probably don't need more. Which sounds really strange. You need approximately over a third of the normal people that aren't Atlantean. More than a third of Egyptian, and about a third of less than a third of the Egyptian, because the Egyptians need more because they gather and build slower. But around about a third of Norse gatherers, and also a third of Greek. Chinese, we're not going to go into. Chinese is very different, and I do need a little bit more information first. But I'm waiting on a few feeds to get back to me, a few lines of inquiry. But yes, that is definitely something that Atlanteans need. So 2 TCs or more could really be helped to pump up more citizens, so you can, dominate with your economy. Fishing ships are the same, so they gather the same way that all fishing ships of all civilizations do. They don't slowly drop off. They collect 25 or 50, depending on what upgrades you've got, drop them at the dock. So if you aren't sure, try and get a heavily fishing map, such as Highland or Sea of Worms or something like that, because fishing ships aren't too weird, so you just need to concentrate your citizens on getting wood and gold and favour. So it's a bit, it's a bit easier. Oracles are your scouts. They have no attack. They move like an average pace. They're faster than citizens, but they're not entirely fast. The other scouts are better. Ulfsocks are faster. Priests they're about the same as priests. So now you know roughly their speed. You can make all your units heroes, and that will give them an attack. I will go into the military section, but just so you know, oracles, when they stand still, they actually gather line of sight to around the site of a tower. When they move, that will go, but they can just go to a new spot and do that. They will let you know when they have reached the maximum line of sight. They'll have a box down, and the animation was they're waving their stick in the air while looking around. That is how you know they've completed their line of sight and they're ready to be moved to somewhere else. But they are quite useful in spotting enemy town centres, but so far with the enemies can't see them, so they are useful. So it's a different way of scouting, but it's a very interesting way of scouting and not a bad way of scouting. You might be thinking, hold up, citizens don't need drop-off points, do they? Where do you get your upgrades at one, dude? Well, you can build an economic guild for 80 wood and 15 gold. So if you equate gold and wood as more equal, which they are quite equal because you can trade with yourself, economy upgrade, the economic guild is approximately the same as two storehouses or granaries for the Greeks. It's more expensive for Egyptian, but it's the same as maybe an ox cart if you equate all resources except they're equal. In the north, it's equivalent of that. And that's, you can build this, that's where you get all your economy upgrades. And it's nothing really more to say about that. We're also going to be talking about manors, which are the Italians, which is the Atlantian version of houses. Manors are 80 wood and 25 gold, but so it is slightly more expensive than a house, or than two houses, I should say. Atlanteans do like to split the cost, so it's more like you'll get myth units and things like that. Not all of them, but some, which are 2 resources and favour, and they do like to do that with a few buildings as well, so they split the cost. So it's not just 100 wood, like even the citizens, they're not wholly designated to just food, they are food and wood. So they have split a lot of resources, so that also can throw a lot of people off as well. If you're expecting citizens are 3 times the cost, well, they're not. They're only 3 times the cost if you consider that wood and food are equal. If you don't consider that they're equal, they're not the same cost. They could be cheaper or more expensive depending on how you see those resources balanced. But manors support 20 populations, so you only need to build 5. The added advantage of houses and manors, I should say, is that they are a lot stronger than normal houses, but you can also store 5 population in there. It doesn't add to your maximum population. It only adds the 20 rather than the 25. But you can store villages in there when you ring the town bell, or if you want to get away from soldiers. So you can actually build a manor line, hide in the manors, and hop out the other side, so citizens aren't restricted. It is really useful. Talking of the economy, the biggest outrage I found when I first built Atlantians was this. Farms are 200 wood. 200 wood. 200 wood. You've got effing Egyptians, which can be anywhere between 70 or 75 gold to like 50 something, depending on what technology you've got. You've got the Greeks at 75 wood, and then you've got the Atlantians at 200 wood. The added advantage of Atlanteans, I should say, with farming is they are probably the best farmers. They don't need to move around, so they don't need to drop things off to the town centre, so there's not that wasted time. They gather food all the time, so you're not having to wait again for that 30 food. And also, you can build them anywhere on the map. You don't need to make sure they're close to the town centre or a granary. So if you are struggling to find a place, you don't need to worry. They can just go anywhere. You've built a market on the corner of the map. Well, build a farm there if you want to. If you need a little bit more food. You've gone some mining in the gold right into the other side of the map than you are. Build a farm. It's great. You've just built a forward base and you don't really know what to do. Build a farm. It's great. So that is incredibly useful. You don't need to worry about it being too close to the town centre. Your farms can be dreadful, but it kind of shows that the Atlanteans shouldn't be farming. They should be hunting, because this is kind of a punishment. Farming is your last resort. Try fishing first, or hunting, or using your herdables. Try not to farm, but farming is available for you as a last resort. In terms of the economy, yes, you do get a different animal because you're a different civilization, so you get a llama. I can't think of anything else that are entirely different in terms of just the economy. I will say that husbandry is probably the least useful of them all, mainly just because husbandry is a farming upgrade and also a herdable upgrade. But if you're not doing any herdables, if you're the best farmers, you don't need any other farming upgrades that are, non-explicit farmer upgrades. So farming upgrades will be necessary as well, but husbandry is not a necessity for a farming upgrade. So apart from that, I think that's all the economy done. I'm just having a quick look now, seeing if I've missed anything, but I don't think I have, in all fairness. So we're going to go on to military. Also, I don't think, but I will double check, And I will put in the comments down below if I've missed something. But I don't believe fortified town centres increase your the rate that you get a favour, so you don't need to worry about that. So it's fine. Apart from that, let's go on to military. So I will say, I mentioned before, heroes in the Atlanteans are any unit you want to, any human unit. So no myth units, any human unit can be a hero. It costs more population and more resources to make them into a hero, but they are useful at everything that they do normally, but especially good at fighting myth units. So one benefit of the god power Valor, which I will get into more later, is that it always transforms a certain amount of military and one free citizen. So always try and get that god power on a citizen if you can, because this means they build faster and they gather resources faster, but they're also good at defending themselves if myth units come along. Oracles get their line of sight faster, and they can view a little bit more of their hero, and they can attack, because usually they don't have an attack. You do get a lot of benefits with certain gods if you've just advanced them to become a hero. So there is one which increases cavalry attack when you make them into heroes. So that is to be looked at as well, because it does add a new dynamic. In terms of military, though, you have 3 places where you can create soldiers, not myth units. That's a temple that you always have them. But I nearly said Egyptians. Jesus Christ, I'm bad at words. Okay, I'm sorry. But in terms of the Atlanteans, you have a military barracks, a counter barracks, and a palace. A palace, they have to be bougie and extra because they are Atlantean and they think they deserve everything. It's the equivalent of a medieval stronghold, fortress, hill fort. So, yeah. So military barracks, you change your Murmelo in your first age, standard infantry unit, and then in the heroic age, you've got your Contrarians, I want to say. They're your standard cavalry, and then your Arcuses, which is your standard archers. You then got your counter barracks, which I tend not to produce anything of. I actually didn't like Atlanteans, mainly because their mythology sucks, but I just assumed their soldiers sucked as well. From the normal barracks, Murmelos, I'm going to just say cavalry and your Arcuses, they all are strong, and they are actually not to be sniffed at. They are probably stronger than the Greeks, but you won't get a lot, especially if you transform them into heroes. I have done so much fun raiding, getting some cavalry, and making them into heroes, getting all the upgrades for them, and just pillaging everywhere and destroying cities with like 10 of them. So they are very strong. So if you are looking at Atlanteans and like, oh, they're not that great, trust me, they are. You just need to be a bit more aggressive in terms of the military production, but in terms of the society, be more defensive. So build walls, definitely boom if you can. Try and get to heroic age as fast as you can, so then you can build Arcuses, which has 20 range. You can build very, very strong cavalry, and it's going to be great. Counter barracks, I tend not to make. I tried them, and I will agree, although they are useful, the units you can get out here, specifically Terma, they're not that strong. So if you are looking at Atlantian, I don't know how to play. If you're playing against the AI, try not to build counter barracks, because I feel like they are a little bit more for advanced players. And if you are new to the civilization, maybe they're not that strong. You can get Capeltes, Terma, and Chiruballista. Chiruballista, I think, is the weakest out of them all. I never actually got any good kills with the Chiruballista, and I never felt I lost more battles having the Chiruballista in than if I just had normal people from the normal barracks. Because the problem with counter barracks units, and this is counter units in general, same as the Atlantean, as the Egyptian with the barracks, they are great until you have a mixed army, and then you're in trouble because they are only good against one type. So if you're fighting, I don't know, a Greek player, and they're Poseidon, you thought, right, they're going to go solely for cavalry, and you make loads of Cantapolites, and maybe a few Murmelo, you won't survive if they've got archers, if they've got Toxotes, or if they've got myth units. Myth units maybe, but if they've got myth units in there, or if they've got hoplites in there, you're not going to survive, because the miller might. But look, just look at so their pierce armor is 10%, and the hack damage is really low, but they get loads of bonus damage. They're also bonus damage against siege weapons. I did not know that, so that's useful. So, like I said, 5 hack damage and 10% pierce armor, whereas these guys are 10% pierce armor but 8 hack damage. That 3 damage makes the difference. That 3 damage is an extra 1 saved, and you can heal them up under certain situations. But enough about that. Let's move on to the palace units. So the palace units, you get Destroyer, which are infantry that are really good at buildings. So if you are someone who is very passionate about infantry-based things, and you've made loads of Mamillos and Catapultas, you might want to get these guys, because they're going to be a bit stronger than your other siege weapons, because they benefit from infantry upgrades. So really useful. In Heroic Age, you get Fanatics. Fanatics are infantry that are good against all other non-archer infantry or human units. So they're good against siege weapons. They're good against just all human soldiers. So they're really good against all the Greek unique units, apart from Hades, obviously. So if you are fighting Atlantian and they have got up to Mythic Age really quickly, try and produce a lot of archers, because if they do produce fanatics, you're in trouble. You will lose loads of soldiers to fanatics. If you have infantry, if you have counter infantry could work. But if you have infantry that aren't counter infantry, if you have unique units, and also if you have cavalry, fanatics will shred them. So don't get that. If they have gone to a fast heroic, produce archers, because archers are very, very strong, and you will do a lot of damage against the fanatics. But fanatics are incredibly strong, and it's good against. It's good to produce. Not many of them, but some of them. If you are struggling to hold, and you're just about away from Mythic, you're struggling to hold, you're dying a lot, produce fanatics, and you'll make it a lot easier, as long as they don't have any archers. So then we're going to talk about siege weapons. We're not going to stay on long here because they're pretty much the same. The Onager is the long-range firing one. They have a range of 28, which then is increased by the Engineers upgrade. And Fire Siphon has a range of 16, but it is 5 population, and it does have 60 crush damage and a little bit of pierce damage. So they are useful as well in against a bunch of units, just like a Troubleier. So that is the military kind of in a nutshell. It's very, very strong, but with all the counter units and the counter barracks, they are a little bit more challenging than others. For example, the Egyptians are easy, the barracks are counter units, they're not supposed to be for a long time unless you've got loads of upgrades for them. Whereas the Midgard Stronghold are very, very strong units that are used later in the game, but they are very expensive and high in population cost. So you can kind of pepper in barracks units there as well. The Atlanteans are very strong normal units, so if you do actually then produce a lot of soldiers, it's a lot of counter units, they are useful if you know exactly what you're going against, or along with other soldiers, because otherwise they're not that great, and it's just wasted resources where you could have spent them on Mamillos, Arcuses, or cavalry, and then actually had definite units, rather than ones that have died because they had a mixture of units and they fought the wrong ones. So now we're going to talk about mythology. So the Atlanteans are probably the first ones that will ever get favor, because they don't have to build anything else. They don't have to build a monument. They don't have to fight. They don't have to build a temple. They don't have to build a garden in order for them to get favor. They just have to have a town center. Now, they are very slow at producing favor, and it kind of, if you have ever played the campaign, it kind of shows you never to rely on mythology, because a lot of the time, they don't give you access to mythology. The first 2 missions, they don't give you access to mythology. The third one, you don't have a town center, so it limits the amount of mythology you can make. Don't get me wrong, myth units still are strong and they have benefits in places, but they aren't as strong as the Greeks, Egyptians, Norse. Chinese, I'm still working with. I'm doing a lot of games currently, trying to figure out their strengths and weaknesses a little bit more, because the internet is not being helpful. But yes, definitely the myth units are weaker, and you need to focus on upgrades and how they can help all your soldiers and not just your myth units. Like maybe you look at how they can benefit your myth units in Greek, whereas you won't in Atlantian. You shouldn't in Atlantian. You still can, but you'll do better with upgrades how to support your normal units and their god powers rather than elsewhere. Mythology, also another thing you need to know is that most, if not all, god powers can be used more than once. I will try and say the amount that can be used. I might be wrong. It tends to be the way that the most that can be used is the main god, so Cronus, Uranus, or Gaia's, and the least amount of god powers you can use is the ones that take you into heroic age. You can use those maybe once or twice, probably once though, depending on the show. So good luck. They are quite strong, but they're not obviously brokenly strong. I think this is what Chinese shouldn't be. They're incredibly more balanced, but only if you practice with them, the Atlantean civilization as a whole. So now let's get into the major gods. So we're going to close this, and we're going to have a look at Kronos first. So I did say I wasn't going to look at Kronos first, and we are now. So Kronos, what do you do? I need to go on. I actually need to do this. That was stupid of me. So Kronos. His focus is siege and myth units. Buildings can be time shifted from one place to the other over the map. This will cost resources. This will cost usually about 5 wood. But if it contains arrows, it will either be 200 wood or the original cost of the building. So it could be, if it was archers, 200 wood. If it was towers, 200 wood and 100 gold. It will not transport the units, and so if you have any units in those buildings, get them rid of immediately, but it's really useful for moving bases around. It's really useful for being maybe a bit more defensive if you've got it in the wrong place, or if you've blocked something. Really, really useful to do. So, yes, I highly advise playing with time shift. Does make things more aggressive and a lot more interesting. Siege units move faster and are cheaper. If you've ever played a game and you've struggled with siege units moving at a fast pace, you'll know that this is a struggle, so they do move faster, and draft horses will definitely increase that as well. I will say, though, that this does not affect destroyers, nor does it affect anything with a bonus damage against buildings. It's only siege that it includes. So a lot of people I've seen online are a bit confused whether destroyers are counted or not. They're not. They're infantry. They benefit with infantry upgrades. This is a siege upgrade exclusively. Myth units cheaper and faster. Not really much you can say about that. They're just cheaper and faster. So Kronos is a benefit. God power is also deconstruction. So deconstruction actually will remove a completed building from existence. It will take over time. And it will give the resources back to the original person. You can't use it on yourself. You could only use it on enemies or, other enemies. So it's really good. You can use it twice. It does take around about 5 to 7 minutes to cool down. I'm not entirely sure of the time, but I believe it's more so 5 than 20, which is always useful. They are quite fast to reload, to be fair. He gives you the benefit focus, so Kronos. This is the first upgrade, really, we're going to talk about. And it's also the first upgrade that actually talks about heroes exclusively as well. So Kronos forces intense focus onto oracles, increasing their speed and sight and speed of which their line of sight grows. Always useful. Kronos also increases the hero oracle's attack and hit points. So again, heroes. So if you do research this, which is 50 wood and 2 favor, it will increase your hero oracles as well as just your normal oracles. I know I've emphasized hero too much and it doesn't sound like a real word now, but I promise you I needed to do that because I didn't realize that was the case. I didn't even finish the second line, to be fair, when I originally read it, when I was fast playing. So Uranus is very interesting. Uranus and Cronus are very similar to the Odin and Thor one. One's much better in the early game, and the other one's much better late game. I believe Uranus is better late game, and so is a little bit more a better choice. But Cronus is very, very interesting. It stops you being such a defensive civilization as maybe all the other ones will. Gaia and Uranus will mainly. So let's talk about Uranus. His benefit is human military units. You can build sky passages, allowing units to travel quickly from one place to the other, and we'll go into that after this. Shares line of sight of all settlements with allies. Very, very useful on nomad maps or maps where you're on an island, because then it kind of shows you where all they are, and maybe even where the enemies are, because it won't show you where their town centres are, because they're claimed. But if you do destroy a town centre and you haven't done it, and you've done like a 1v1v1 if you want, and one of the other people that aren't your allies has destroyed that town centre, it won't show you that empty town centre. It won't show you when ones have been claimed. It will only show you where they would be if no one had claimed them. No, if no one had moved, it will basically show you that. Human units are faster. Really not much more to say. They can just travel around the map a little bit better. So it gives you sky passages. Sky passages are building which cost, again, split resources, 200 wood, 150 gold, and 3 favour. These carry 20 units at a time. The closest thing I can put it to is an underworld passage, but you actually choose to build sky passages, and you can build a few of them, and they don't transport immediately. You've got to ungarrison them at another sky passage, because you have to have 3. They're not entirely sure which they're going to eject out of, so you've got to specifically say where it is. So if you do have an army more of 20 and you have built sky passages, you need to make sure that you've got them on hotkeys, so you can just eject them at a relatively quick time. You can get an upgrade for them, which is Safe Passage, which is 200 wood and 10 favour, and it does make sky passages cheaper and have more line of sight and a ranged attack, so it does make them a little bit more defensive, again, adding to the defensiveness of people of the Atlanteans. He also gives you Shockwave. Shockwave is a god power you can use 4 times. And it's in a very small area, and it literally is a shockwave on the area and leaves enemy units stunned. This means you can be a bit more aggressive. If you're losing a fight, this could win the fight. It won't affect your units, but also what is hugely benefit is if you're running away because you can't win a fight, or you've got just citizens. You can run away, and it means they are a little bit more safe, because some of the units, if not all of the units, if it's a small force, have been pushed out the way. So it does help to be a bit more defensive. Next, we're going to talk about Gaia. Gaia is probably the most interesting and has varying strategy. She's not that popular from what I've seen. A lot of people don't play Gaia, but I actually like playing Gaia. I think it's very interesting. But yeah. So, Gaia. Lush grows out of buildings. So Lush is a very green thing that it comes out of buildings, and when a building is destroyed, it will go back. It will still be green, but it won't be as bright green. It will be like instead of a light green, it will go to a dark green. Dark green Lush can be built on, light green can't. To my knowledge, I will have to double check this, but I know that I've built on Lush. You can take town centres as well from Gaia players. So I'm assuming that when Lush has completely died down, you can build on it. But I don't know for definite. It's something that maybe we'll never find out. But I'm assuming when Lush has died down, which takes time after a building is destroyed, you can do that. Buildings regenerate, so if you are attacked and raided, you don't need to repair, which is always useful. Economic improvements are cheaper. Fishing ships and caravans have more hit points and are cheaper, which is incredibly useful for, again, economy. So Gaia really is a good pocket player, not good for 1v1. She's okay, but she'll make your economy stronger and better. So she's essentially ISIS, but only these, but a lot bigger upgrades. Because instead of ISIS where it's all the upgrades, it's just these ones. So they are a lot cheaper. So that's usually 120 wood and 50 gold. This is usually 100 of each, and now it's 70 of each. So there are benefits. So Gaia gives you the power Gaia Forest. Gaia Forest actually can be collected from citizens faster, and it also there's more wood in there, so it is very useful. Like it says here, it's really good for breaching walls. It's a temporary fix, but it is definitely useful. It's definitely useful at closing off enemy gaps, or if you don't have a good wood line, it's there to increase the wood line to make it more beneficial. So you can use Gaia's Forest 4 times. She also gives you the God Power Channels. Channels allows your citizens to move faster. Not really much you can say about this. It is incredibly useful as they do walk slow, but it does mean that they do move faster. But this doesn't have a massive benefit later game, but it can early game with moving from different hunt to hunt, different from wood from tree line to tree line, or from a benefit that I found going for forward bases. So very, very useful overall, not to be sniffed at, but much better early game rather than late game. So now we're going to talk about the gods. So we're going to start off with Leto. Leto is very picked, but I don't know why. So Leto's god power is Spider Lair. Spider Lair is when you click spider eggs in certain areas. If the enemies kill the eggs, they won't have any effect. But if they don't and the eggs hatch, when an enemy unit walks over it, a spider will eat it. It's a one-time fix per spider egg. So it's only one unit they can kill, but it's about 4, so it can be quite defensive as well. Because it does take time for the eggs to hatch. Not long, only a couple of seconds. You can use this god power a few times as well, so it's beneficial. Automatons are useful. They're really cheap. They're 90 gold and 6 favor. So they're really good to build up. And they can repair each other. Repair and rebuild, I'm going to say, because even when an automaton is killed, if you bring your automaton to that area, you can rebuild them. So they are quite a good investment. Leto also gives you Hephaestus' Revenge, so it gives them more hit points and so they can repair themselves, which is very useful. And Volcanic Forge, it means it hardens the steel, but again, look, it's a mixed upgrade. It's 250 gold and 15 favor, so it's quite expensive. Leto summons Hephaestus to harden the steel of your automatons, soldiers, heroes, and ships, making them more resistant to pierce damage such as arrows. So it just means they're a little bit better against archers. Every unit is better against your archers, except human units, except citizens. But fishing ships as well. Did I say fishing? Yeah, all ships, I should say. Which is really useful because a lot of ships are actually on piers. Because even the Siege, that's a fire ship. That's hack. They have a fire ship, not a hammering ship. So, but fire does hack damage in this game. But the Siege, it doesn't affect the crush damage. But who's really weak against? It's good for fire ships because fire ships are really weak to arrow ships. So having a more pierce armor helps. Do you know where I was going with that? I lost track halfway through. I love when that happens. But we're going to talk about Oceanus now. So Oceanus, not as strong as I originally thought. Thought he was much stronger. Carnivora, it's a man-eating plant that doesn't move. It stays still, and it has a special attack where it eats the person. It eats a human unit, a human soldier. If it comes too close, it doesn't have much range. But it does have hack damage it can do as well, so it is useful if you're being a lot more, say with me people, defensive. He also gives you Servant, which heals your ships and allied units. It doesn't have to be ships, it can literally be anyone if you bring it close to the water. And it's also, it has an attack, unlike its counterpart, which is a flying unit called Calidaria. Could be saying it wrong. This unit is actually a split unit, like I said, 100 food, 25 gold, and 10 favor, but really good scouts because it does fly relatively fast. So it can be like a Pegasus, a very expensive Pegasus, but they're free if you're on a random map. All it can do is heal. It can't attack, and it can only attack with range units. He also gives you the Bite of the Shark, which increases your attack of your Momono and your Fanatics. And also gives you the Weightless Mace, which increases the Catapulta's speed and attack. Still not great, but you know, they're. You can also go for Prometheus. So Prometheus gives you the god power of valor. Like I said, it does include one citizen for every cast of valor. You can cast it several times, so that does mean that you can get a fair amount of villages in there. But it won't automatically target it. The so-called citizen has to be in the area. It's not like Restoration where it goes outside a little bit. It doesn't. Promethean is a really interesting enemy. It's 72. It's not 72. It's 80. I think it's 80. Yeah, it's 80 wood. It's 80 gold. Kronos makes it cheaper, so it's a bit unnerving to go on Mythian that's under him. 80 gold and 10 favor. When they are destroyed, it divides in two. These are obviously much weaker forms. Two Promethean offspring make one Promethean, but you can't fuse them back together. So just a warning. He also gives you alluvial clay. He gives you clay, which is 150 wood and 12 favor, and it increases the hit points of your Prometheans and your Promethean offsprings. Does mean they're a bit more useful to use. So, hey. Good. And he also gives you the Heart of the Titans, which reduces the cost of improving human units to heroes. Really useful because they are expensive. Moving on to the classic age gods, which you worship to get to heroic age. Thea is probably one of my favorites. She gives you a Hesperides tree. I don't know. It's a tree. This stops god powers being cast in your area, so it is useful. You can make two, do both. They do produce dryads, which are 150 gold. I don't know if they're any favor, I do apologize. This favor actually also, these dryads actually cost no population, so they are useful. I don't think they cost population anyway. You can produce 5 maximum at a time. It's not 5 per tree, it's 5 overall. These trees can be overtaken if your enemies claim it. They can produce dryads as well. Dryads aren't particularly strong, but it's more with units you don't want to give them access to. Steinophilian bird gives you bird. Just 200 wood, 50 gold, and 25 favor. It takes 4. It's a flying unit. It's relatively strong. But obviously, like all flying units, take extra damage from arrows to make them a bit more balanced. She also gives you Lemurian Descendants, Lemurian, I don't know, increases line of sight for all your human soldiers and heroes. She gives you Poseidon's Secret, which makes your cavalry stronger and more attack. And Lance of Stone increases your cavalry hero attack, especially versus buildings. Which is why I said when the heroes with all the upgrades, they are really, really strong. You've got Hyperion as well. Hyperion gives you the god power Chaos, which targets a group of enemies. I don't think it uses yours, but I might be wrong. And it inflicts chaos, so it makes them hostile. They do lose all the upgrades, so if you do it on champion hoplites, they will go down to hoplites, etc. So just be aware of that. They're not that useful later game. It's better earlier on. Gives you Satyr. Satyr is basically a really crap version of the Manticore. It does have a special ability to launch a few lances at a time. They're not great. They're ranged. They're 250 wood and 20 favor. Wouldn't invest going all on Satyrs. You will be disappointed. Then you've got Nereid. Nereid is a naval myth unit. It's pretty darn good. So if you have got a heavy water map, Nereids are quite useful. You've also got Gemino, which doubles the amount of javelins your Satyr throws. I believe that's only at your special attack. I could be wrong. You will have to double check. But Heroic Neural is the one that everyone goes to Hyperion for. It lets your heroes regenerate. So if you can't heal unless you go with Oceanus before, but you can't heal. So getting Heroic Renewal will make your army a little bit better. Gaia, you can also worship Rhea. Rhea gives you access to Traitor. Traitor transforms one enemy to your team from their team. Really useful, really, really strong, really, really good. Love it, great. Underpowered. Behemoth. Behemoth is a myth unit that regenerates its 5 population cost though, so very expensive. But it regenerates, so it's really useful. The Ria also gives you a faster favor trickle. Really useful, so you don't have to constantly build new town centres. Just gives you the male of Orichalcos, which makes your archers more resistant to hack and pierce damage, and also gives you Rhea's Gifts, which reduces the cost of mythological improvements, the favour cost mainly. You can then go to Atlas. Atlas is a god that gives you access to Implode, which sucks in on a wide radius all units and buildings, and the more it is sucked in, the more damage it will do when it explodes. So Implode is very useful on an enemy base before you raid. Just make sure that your units don't get sucked in, because they can. Argus is a myth unit. It's not really that great. It's quite weak. It sounds horrible. It sounds like the word flaps. Not great. It does do a blob of acid that instantly kills units. You can give it the eyes of you can make Guardians of Io, giving them a better line of sight and recharging their special abilities faster. Very useful. Eyes of Atlas increases the line of sight for all your myth units, and also Titan Shield makes your buildings more resistant to crush and hack damage, such as siege or infantry. Very useful along with masons and architects. Hecate gives you access to the Tatarian Gate. The Tatarian Gate you can put in a certain place, and it will make Tatarian offsprings jump out of it. Tatarian offsprings are hostile to all. You can't control them. Don't try. Really useful in the enemy space. If they're causing you a little bit of jip, the Tatarian Gate can be killed. But they are hostile to all, including your own. Lampades, I don't know. Lamps. I actually like these. It invokes chaos and range, so chaos is where that enemy loses or upgrades and attacks everyone, makes them hostile. Hecate really does help your myth units though, because she makes your Lampades blood when they're killed that do more damage to all units. There's noise, and it's another thing. Celerity, which makes your myth units train faster, and Mythic Regeneration lets your myth units regenerate. Really useful. Aranos, let's go to you to get Helios. Helios gives you access to a mirror tower, which is a building that does quite a lot of pierce damage. Very good tower. No minimum range, I believe, either, so it's quite useful. Gives you access to Vortex, which transports all your soldiers to a space. It's not like Shifting Sands. It will move everyone. Man of War is a naval myth unit. It does lightning attacks, and lightning, just like fire, is hack damage. Hecagigantes. They are a mighty giant who pound the ground and knock enemies, are very strong against buildings and also against normal soldiers. Halo of the Sun increases damage done by fire siphons and fire ships. Petrified allows the wood of your siege weapons, petrifies the wood of your siege weapons, making them more resistant to hack attacks, such as swords. So that is all the gods and goddesses. Again, they're only really useful, not for the myth units, but for the upgrades they give you. So you need to look at the upgrades they give you before you can really decide if that's the one for you. It's not good or bad. It's you have to decide based on your major god and what you're going to produce. So you need to take a little bit of a breath, Atlantians, give them a little bit of time to start getting revved up, and give them a little bit of breathing room. Let them tell you where to go, rather than trying to force a strategy on them. Having said that, everyone, you need to play a lot of Atlantian if you want to get used to them. I think if you struggle with them, it should encourage you more to try it. But with that, I'm going to say that my name has been That One Dude. You've been watching me talk about the Atlantians. If you enjoyed, please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Leave me down a comment, any questions, literally any questions, and I will do tons of research if I have to give you the answer, and I will try and give you the best answer as soon as I possibly can. So with that, goodbye, my friends. Thank you very much for joining. Please give me a like and subscribe. It helps more than you know, and I will see you in the next one. Have fun with the Atlantians, and bye, guys.